From a studio high above the clouds of the Okanagan Valley, this is the Cannabis Podcast. Exploring the world of Canadian cannabis culture, one toke at a time. Now, here's your host and bud tender, Gary Johnston.
And let me welcome you back to the Cannabis Podcast. I'm so happy you came back for another visit. Or maybe this is your very first visit. Well, if it is, here's an especially warm welcome for you. We're going to spend the next 30 or 40 minutes filling your head with information about cannabis, a plant I am absolutely passionate about, and perhaps you have the similar interest. Before we get too much further, let me remind you this program is intended only for those 19 or older in your jurisdiction, and is intended primarily for entertainment and perhaps educational purposes. You should always consume your cannabis responsibly. In episode 158, we're going to take a look at a couple of stories on a failed break-in. Compliance and enforcement efforts are continuing. A couple of celebrities and their cannabis activity of late. Hospital visits up post-legalization? Sort of. Daily cannabis use has exceeded daily alcohol use for the first time. And we're going to ask the question, what is THCP? On Cultivar Corner, it's a gold medal round with Ross's Gold Organic Mango Gold. All of that and more on episode 158 of the Cannabis Podcast. And of course, let me say how much I appreciate the fact that you were here. Thank you so much for being a listener of the Cannabis Podcast. I truly appreciate it. I also want to take the opportunity to thank my supporters, and I truly appreciate their support each and every time. So my thanks to Jordan, Kevin, and Jordana at buymeacoffee.com/Cannabis Podcast. If you feel so inclined and you like what you hear, you can go there too and buy me a doobie. And I'll remind you that 1% of the revenue that comes in through Buy Me a Coffee goes to climate research. I also want to thank my patrons at Patreon. Thanks to Tony, Roger, Rob, Gage, Lloyd, and Mitchell. I thank each and every one of you so much for your support. And now to our first story of the episode. Now, we don't often cover entertainment stories in the Cannabis Podcast, but I found this one interesting. This is from 420intel.com. Nicki Minaj's Manchester concert was postponed after a marijuana incident in Amsterdam. Nicki Minaj's concert in Manchester, scheduled for Saturday night, was postponed after police in the Netherlands discovered marijuana in her bags as she was preparing to leave the country. Promoter Live Nation said the performance will be rescheduled and tickets will be honored. Despite Nicki's best efforts to explore every possible avenue to make tonight's show happen, the events of today have made it impossible, the promoter said in a statement. We're deeply disappointed by the inconvenience this has created. Minaj tweeted earlier Saturday that she was stopped at the Amsterdam airport as she was about to board a plane for the concert in Manchester. Police told her they found marijuana in her bags and it would have to be weighed, she tweeted. Cannabis is illegal in the Netherlands, but it is tolerated for recreational use. Robert Van Kappel, a spokesperson for the Netherlands military police, said a 41-year-old American woman had been arrested for exporting soft drugs. He did not identify the woman or elaborate on the type of drugs in question. Police later tweeted that they fined the woman and released her. Minaj, who is 41 years old, tweeted that she believes police just wanted to make her late for a concert in Manchester. I told you, it's to try to make me late so that they can write negative stories. Jealousy's a disease, you know the rest, Minaj tweeted. Her representatives didn't immediately respond to messages on Saturday. So there you go. Is it a surprise that she had marijuana? Probably not. Is it a surprise that she got caught with it in the Netherlands? To her, it definitely was. Mike Tyson's love for cannabis is well known. Well, he also likes boxing a lot because he stopped cannabis for that. Mike Tyson temporarily halted cannabis use to comply with boxing regulations ahead of his match against Jake Paul, affirming his commitment to the sport while maintaining advocacy for cannabis's medicinal benefits. And this story from 420intel.com. Following his exhibition fight against Roy Jones in 2020, Tyson openly acknowledged using marijuana on the day of the bout. Throughout the approximately 275 episodes of his podcast, Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson, he's consistently showcased his consumption of marijuana. Notably, Tyson has ventured beyond consumption and has ventured into the business realm, marketing his own cannabis brand of Tyson 2.0. Now at the age of 57, Tyson appears to be challenging himself in a different arena, one potentially more formidable than facing opponents decades his junior. In preparation for his upcoming boxing match against Jake Paul, age 27, scheduled for July 20th at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, Tyson has temporarily ceased his cannabis use, as confirmed by Joanne Magnio, Tyson's publicist. He only stopped as a means of following all the rules, Magnio told USA Today Sports by email, but he is still a strong advocate for the medicinal benefits of cannabis for his personal well-being and others like him. If you need to stop your cannabis for a boxing match, you can do it and still enjoy the medicinal benefits. I totally get that, Mike.
From the cannabis-infused studio in the clouds, this is the Cannabis Podcast.
And this story is from Strachan.com, written by David Brown. And I've got two stories on this same topic because the second link has some video that you can take a peek at. A cannabis store in West Kelowna was broken into in the early hours of Friday morning, leaving behind extensive damage and making off with a handful of pre-rolls. Sky Cannabis Company, located on Industrial Road in West Kelowna, in a small shopping center shared with a gas station, is open again for business after cleaning up following the break-in just after 3 a.m. on Friday, May 24th. Natasha Ray, the owner of the store, says she received an alert on her phone and quickly contacted police, who responded quickly, but not before the burglars escaped with a handful of cannabis pre-rolls. Video of the incident shows the two bumbling burglars struggling to use a truck and chain to rip the doors off the store, before seeming to search in vain for products inside. Ray says they made off with only a handful of pre-rolls, but caused significant damage, not only to the two doors, but to the back office and at least one display case. Luckily, we're very secure, says Ray. We're happy that no one was hurt, but it's a lot of damage for very little profit on their part. She says the two could have probably made more money working in her store for a day than they will likely make selling the handful of products they stole. Ray and her team have shared the video with police and with the community, many of whom, she says, have reached out to her saying they believe they recognize the maroon Dodge 4x4 truck and the two men involved. The two cannabis stores in BC's Lower Mainland faced similar break-ins earlier this year, causing significant damage to the stores and a loss of product. And we're just going to segue into the second story I have on this same topic, because on that story, and the link that you'll find back at the Cannabis Podcast page, you're going to see a link, and you can see what these two robbers tried to do. This is from Castanet.net. A pair of thieves used a stolen pickup truck, and that's a piece of data that wasn't in the original story. They used a stolen pickup truck to break into a West Kelowna cannabis store in the early morning hours of Friday, but they made off with very little. Surveillance footage from inside shows the pair running through the store, throwing items into a large garbage bin they'd brought before taking off in the truck. Sky Cannabis spokesperson Natasha Ray said she called police as soon as her phone notified her the store's alarm was going off, but the thieves were gone before an officer arrived. She said the pair only ended up with making off with some pre-rolled cannabis joints worth a couple $100. The damage is insane, she says. For insurance coverage, now we need a new door, Ray said. We hired a private security company, so there's a man who's literally sitting in front of my store every night until everything is completely fixed. Police have since informed Ray that the truck used in the theft was stolen. She said they've been operating at the location for about 4 years, and this is the first time they've dealt with any theft issues. There's two different perspectives. On the same story, two bumbling burglars trying to break into a cannabis store. They did break in, but they didn't make off with very much weed. And the inspiration for today's episode is some Johnny Chronic Acapulco Gold, getting me going in the morning. And for this story, we are going to 420intel.com. Daily cannabis use in the U.S. has now outpaced that of alcohol for the first time, according to a new national survey. While alcohol remains more widely used throughout the country, the percentage of cannabis users consuming it on a daily basis overtook those consuming alcohol daily in 2022 for the first time in over 4 decades. According to the research, which has been based on data from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, cannabis use has been a substantial increase since 2008, with past year usage rising by 120%, and the total days of use reported per capita jumped by 218%. Notably, from 1992 to 2022, daily or near-daily cannabis use increased 15-fold, from 0.9 million to 17.7 million users, and this increase far outpaced alcohol consumption trends. In 1992, daily or near-daily alcohol users vastly outnumbered cannabis users, 8.9 million to 0.9. And by 2022, the number of D&D cannabis users would surpass that of alcohol users at 17.7 versus 14.7. Cannabis use patterns have, according to the research, evolved to resemble cigarette consumption more closely than alcohol. Additionally, marijuana is no longer predominantly a young person's drug. In 2022, individuals aged 35 and older accounted for more days of use than those under 35. Jonathan Calkins, cannabis policy researcher at Carnegie Mellon University, said, a good 40% of current cannabis users are using it daily or near daily, a pattern that is more associated with tobacco use than typical alcohol use. So there's some interesting statistics. Daily cannabis use has surpassed alcohol use for the first time this last year. Is that a surprise to anyone?
Exploring the world of Canadian cannabis culture, one toke at a time. This is the Cannabis Podcast.
And this story from Stratcan.com, David Brown, the author, hospital visits for cannabis among older Ontarians were increasing even before legalization. A study released this week shows that the annual rate of emergency department visits among older people in Ontario increased post-legalization. What many stories covering this new research paper overlook, however, is that rates were already increasing significantly in the years before legalization in late 2018. In fact, post-legalization, the rate of increase slowed considerably. In addition, while many news articles on the paper are highlighting that there was an increase in these hospital visits in 2020 and attributing this to the introduction of cannabis edibles in Canada, they again overlook that cannabis edibles were not widely available in Canada in much of 2020. While these products were made legal in late 2019, they did not become widely available and at competitive prices until mid-2021. This is a misunderstanding of the market, which has been repeated many times by researchers in the media reporting on their work. The most recent study, published on May 20th in the Journal of American Medical Association, shows that emergency department visits in Ontario for cannabis-related poisonings increased from 55 per 100,000 visits in 2015 to 107 in 2016 and up to 337 in 2018. The most significant increases in this timeline, covered by the study, occurred in the years leading up to legalization. In addition, while the study and some articles on the study discuss an increase in emergency department visits related to the introduction of edibles, the increases in 2020 and even 2021 were very modest, especially compared to previous years. The increase from 2019 to 2020 was just 17 per 100,000, while the increase from 2020 to 2021, when edibles began to be more common in the legal market, was just 70 per 100,000. So on the one hand, yes, there are notable increased emergency room visits among older Canadians related to cannabis use. And yes, this is a legitimate public health concern and cost. But to say this is caused by legalization, or specifically by cannabis edibles, is misleading. These figures were already rising in the years leading up to legalization, significantly so. And they grew much less in the years following legalization, comparatively speaking. In addition, in the most recent year recorded of 2022, those visits declined from a peak, potentially supporting the idea that consumers are becoming more knowledgeable about how to self-regulate the use of these products and better manage any symptoms without needing to visit the emergency department. Unfortunately, news reports that inaccurately attribute these increases specifically to legal edibles or to legalization in general simply serve to feed prohibitionist strawmen. This is not new. We've seen similar issues in the past in regard to edibles and young people, with researchers and media seemingly unaware of the prevalence of illicit edibles. And how true is that, David? There's a lot of misconception out there about the industry and how it's been impacted, whether it was legal or illegal. It feels sometimes we're just in a revolving door here, doesn't it? And another story by David Brown from Stratcan.com. This talking about compliance and enforcement efforts and how they are continuing to increase. Health Canada increased the number of inspections it conducted in the most recent fiscal year compared to the year prior, especially of personal and designated medical cannabis growers. According to the newest annual report covering April 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2023, Health Canada's regulatory branch conducted 662 inspection activities of regulated parties under the Cannabis Act and its regulations. Included were 170 registered personal and designated production of cannabis for medical purposes inspections. This number increased from 549 inspections in 2021-22, which includes 89 inspections of personal and designated cannabis growers. In-person inspections were mostly paused from 2020 to 2021 due to pandemic-related closures. The increase in inspection of those with licenses to grow cannabis for medical purposes, either for themselves or as a designated grower for others, is part of Health Canada's efforts to reduce what it refers to as misuse of the medical cannabis program, while still maintaining access to the medical program for those who need it. In addition to inspections of these personal and designated growers, Health Canada's inspectors also conduct compliance verifications with federally licensed commercial cannabis producers. Of the 492 inspections conducted of commercial license holders, Health Canada issued 15 non-compliant inspection reports, 163 major observations, and 350 minor observations. Sampling was conducted in 5 of these inspections. And as a bit of a sidebar, be interesting to know, wouldn't it, what the major observation were and the minor observations? I suppose you can find that clarity somewhere, but I don't see it in this article. End of sidebar. Of the 15 non-compliant reports, Health Canada issued 2 formal warning letters, 1 partial license suspension, along with product seizure and detention. Issues that resulted in a non-compliant rating included conducting unauthorized activities with cannabis, insufficient record keeping, lack of appropriate inventory control and oversight, unsatisfactory cannabis packaging or labeling, insufficient security measures in place, and non-compliance related to good production practices or GPP. The majority of inspections were regularly scheduled inspections. Another 115 were compliance verifications, 31 were concerning sales, and 18 were targeted inspections. In addition to these types of inspections, Health Canada also takes measures to ensure cannabis license holders are following the promotional prohibitions under the Cannabis Act. In the most recent year, Health Canada conducted 353 compliance activities related to promotions, which led to 93 actions, either compliance or promotional emails, letters, or calls, highlighting the agency's guidance-based approach towards compliance. The significant increase in inspections was of the personal and designated medical grows, expanding by 40% compared to the previous year. Of the 170 completed inspections, 78 resulted in no observations, and 92 resulted in at least one, for a total of 165 observations. Police in Quebec recently shared information on a string of busts they had conducted on license holders they say are using the designation to feed into large-scale distribution and trafficking activities outside the scope of the license. Personal and medical authorization sites have been under increased scrutiny in the past few years from several municipalities and many Conservative MPs, especially in Ontario, where the OPP says criminal enterprises are exploiting the Health Canada medical, personal, and designated cannabis production regime. And for that story, again, we thank David Brown from Stratcan.com.
THC, CBD, terpene profiles, what's in me? Oh, please explain to me. Cultivar Corner, Cultivar Corner, oh yeah. Cultivar Corner, please explain this stuff to me.
On Cultivar Corner today, we're trying something new again, which is what we're supposed to do on Cultivar Corner, right? This is Ross's Gold. And we, of course, know the story. It was a gold medal for snowboarding for Ross Rebigilati, and it was soon after that they discovered that he tested positive for cannabis. And Ross decided to make it his life's goal to follow that cannabis path, and he's apparently done a pretty good job because he's got his own weed company now. Ross's Gold, and what I've determined is they are another one of these collectors, going to various micros and getting their product and distributing it to the world. Let me give you the lowdown on Ross's Gold. That's what it is. The finest flower, hand-selected. It's personal. Procuring the finest flower from the best craft producers in BC. And now here comes my first criticism, because I have gone to rossgoldcannabis.com. I'm on the website, and what I have in my hand doesn't appear anywhere on their website. The only thing that's there right now is their current pre-release, which is an indica-dominant black diamond, but that's not what I got. I have organic mango gold. So I had to go to another source to find out some information, so I did. And I went to Craft Greenery. I picked it up off of their online site. So the strain type is sativa dominant. Region is Thompson Okanagan, although my bag says this was Vancouver Island small batch, a 21-day cure, hand-trimmed, and the highest of standards. So Ross's Gold Organic Mango Gold. It is a cross of Animal Kush, Mango Kush, and Pink Cookies. It's like breathing in flavored oxygen, perfect for fueling creativity and activity. Mango Gold is a testament to natural cultivation and exceptional flower. Grown in living soil with organic inputs, the sativa-dominant strain offers an experience akin to inhaling flavored oxygen, refreshing, invigorating, and utterly satisfying. The careful cross of Animal Kush, Mango Kush, and Pink Cookies results in a unique aroma and flavor profile that promises a burst of creativity and a mental uplift, ideal for enhancing daily activities with a touch of nature's finest. With 3.5 grams of Mango Gold, actually I got 7 grams of Mango Gold, users have the perfect opportunity to delve into its distinctive characteristics, especially suited for tasks requiring a creative spark or an energetic boost, transforming routine activities into engaging and productive endeavors. And that's enough write-up. It's time I open my 7-gram Mylar bag, and based on my previous experience with these 7-gram Mylars, it did open fairly easily. Oh, wow. Oh, and the first burst out of the bag, so my total terpenes on this are at 4.55. And there is just an amazing amount of aromas that are coming out of that. So again, this is a cross of Animal Kush, Mango Kush, and Pink Cookies. Oh, wow, you can smell the Kush in there. Oh, and the citrus notes on that, just absolutely gorgeous. A lot of lovely little buds in here. So over my 7 grams here, it looks like I've got about 2 dozen buds. And there we go. 7.00. That's what I like to see. Hasn't been happening a lot lately. Things have been a little light of late, but this is 7.0 on the money. And now let's pull out my jeweler's loop and let's take a look at one of these lovely little buds, and then we'll get down to smoking. Okay, let's get the jeweler's loop up and open. Pick up one of my medium-sized buds and pull that in there. And oh yeah, so this is a light to medium green bud. Lots and lots of red hairs in there. And as I circle it around, lots and lots of trichomes as well. Oh, I'm loving the aroma. Really citrusy notes. That's what I'm picking up. And of course, everybody's palate is slightly different. We'll pick up slightly different notes, but I'm really loving that. And as I start to maneuver, oh yeah, look at that. Just picked up that bud, stuck it to my finger, and it just sticks as I pick it up off the table. Always a good thing anytime we're dealing with my weed. We do like to have some stickiness. And now let's pull out some of those buds. And I'm going to get enough for a joint, and then enough to put it into my Air Max from a riser. And let's see what it tastes like when we put it into the vaporizer. Looking for a good buzz today. This is I'm doing this actually on a Saturday. Starting my Saturday off right. And got my grind. Oh, the amazing aromas that come off of that as I grind more and more of that. Every single time there's just a bit more of those delightful aromas. What are they calling my flavor profile here? So let's tell you what the terpenes are. My total terps are 4.55. I've got terpinolene sitting in the highest place, beta-pinene, beta-myrcene, sabinidine hydrate, and eucalyptol. I don't remember seeing a eucalyptol before, or a sabinine hydrate. Those are my dominant terpenes. And again, my THC on this guy, have I covered that off yet? No, I haven't. 26.7. Okay, joint is rolled. So you take a snowboarding career where you win a gold medal, you get caught for having some cannabis in your system, and you turn that into a world where it's just getting better and better. And that's what Ross has done. So Ross's Gold is what we're doing today, and I'm ready for a taste. This is Ross's Organic Mango Gold, and I'm taking it out of the vaporizer first. Oh yeah, lots of those nice. Oh, the flavor that comes through those total terps at 4.55. I'm picking up a lot of those citrusy notes. A lot of fruity notes as well. And what are they saying? Inhaling flavored oxygen. Refreshing, invigorating, and utterly satisfying. I'm not sure I'd go with the flavored oxygen, but I guess I'm really not too sure what flavored oxygen would taste like. Reminds me of an old song called Fresh Air. All right, time for the joint. So Organic Mango Gold. Had my first couple of tastes in the vaporizer. Really, really flavorful. Really enjoying that. Looking for a really nice sativa hit today. Looking for some creativity. Looking for some stuff to get done. May even include mowing my lawn. Which is never too much fun, but it's always more fun to do it when you're stoned. So I will keep that in mind. Oh, and here comes some happy eyes. Mm-hmm. And yes, here they come. Get more of a taste out of that vaporizer. I'm going for a second bowl in my vaporizer to make sure I get the full effect out of it. It's the one thing you got to be cautious with when you're using the Air Max. The fact that their bowls are glass. And we all know glass can get very, very hot. So try not to get your fingers anywhere near the bowl part of that. There, I've restocked that. Let's do another one. Oh, yeah, so flavorful. And back to the joint. So happy eyes are coming on. Got lots of euphoria going on right now. And really clear, crisp, clean and clear. Refreshing, invigorating, and utterly satisfying. I guess maybe that's where they got those terms. Somebody smoked a joint of organic mango gold, sat down and thought about what it was, and they came up with refreshing, invigorating, and utterly satisfying. Now, what is the joint producing? I'm getting a bit of an uneven burn on it. So let me fire that up again. Get a reset. Could be the way I rolled the joint. I could possibly take some responsibility for that. There, that's going better now. And now let's take a look at what we got coming off on that. There's just a hint of some blackness at the end of that. It's predominantly gray. Let me get rid of that one. We'll try it again. Yeah, 85% gray on my ash or white. Just a tinge of black. I'm not quite sure where that is coming from. I'm not feeling any of that. Happy eyes are coming on a bit stronger. Euphoria coming on a bit stronger. My endocannabinoid system is rocking a bit stronger. Yeah. Oh, there it is. There's that lovely sativa feel that I love to feel. That lovely sativa feel that I love to feel. You know what I mean. That euphoric feeling in your head where you're just feeling, yeah, this is what I wanted to feel today. That energy that says, yeah, I could get a bunch of stuff done. That just lovely feeling, no muddiness. It's really clear. It's like I inhaled some flavored oxygen. I guess they did know what they were talking about when they put down the words on this guy. Now, the joint did go out. Again, could be the fact that I rolled it a little bit too tight. I'm not going to die. Oh, yeah, now it's coming on really strong. Oh, yeah. Now that it's had a chance to sit in my endocannabinoid system for a while. This is what I was looking for. That really nice bursting sativa first thing in the morning. Get some stuff done. Just feeling absolutely fantastic and feeling stoned. Is there a better way to start your day? I'm not so sure that there is. This is Ross's Gold, Organic Mango Gold, THC 26.7, total terpenes 4.55, and again, my terps are terpinolene, beta-pinene, beta-myrcene, saponine hydrate, and eucalyptol are my top four. Hey, it's personal. And I also got to say, it's pretty good weed. I'm enjoying Ross's Gold. And now I am ready for the day.
Sharing stories about good weed while trying good weed. This is the Cannabis Podcast.
And to thekenigma.com we go for our next story. This is, what is THCP and how does it affect you? And this was written by Cody Peterson. In the wee hours of 2019, a team of Italian researchers reported an outstanding discovery. A new cannabinoid was found for the very first time in the cannabis plant, THCP. Tetrahydrocannabinol is a naturally occurring cannabinoid that was first found in very small amounts in a strain of Italian medical cannabis known as FM2. This THC-like cannabinoid was tested in rodents and found to be at least twice as potent as THC, with some laboratory tests suggesting as much as 30 times greater attraction to the CB1 receptor when compared to THC. This means that milligram for milligram, THCP will pack a more powerful punch than THC, but that may also come with more risks of adverse effects comparatively. When it comes to understanding the effects of THCP, It is important to recognize how this molecule differs from other well-known cannabinoids. CBD, CBG, and THC all share a similar chemical structure, and in particular, they share a specific side chain known as the C3-alkyl side chain. The name of this side chain is not important, but its length is extremely important, as the difference between THCP and THC is the length of this chain. While the more familiar cannabinoids like THC have a 5-carbon long side chain, THCP is known to have a 7-carbon long side chain. THCP's side chain is what gives it potent activity at the CB1 and CB2 receptors of the endocannabinoid system. The P in THCP doesn't stand for potent, it instead stands for phoral, which infers the 7-carbon long chain in chemist language. THCP is just one example of the importance of the side chain length. Another prime example of the importance of the side chain is THCV, or tetrahydrocannabivarin. Here, the V stands for varin, and the side chain is only 3 carbons long. And similar to the above, this change in side chain length directly relates to the differences in pharmacology. Instead of being more potent at the CB1 receptor like THCP, the THCV molecule can actually block the receptor instead of activating it. This means that instead of producing THC-like effects, THCV may actually reduce the effects of THC, at least at lower doses. As is too often the case with cannabis in the U.S., the response is almost always, it depends when asked if THCP is legal. While THC is either clearly legal in a state or country based on its marijuana laws, THCP's legality depends more on where it comes from. According to most interpretations of the 2018 Farm Bill, THCP falls into a legal gray area, as long as it's hemp-derived, since it's not explicitly listed in the Controlled Substances Act. Where does THCP come from? There are a lot of similarities between THC and THCP. The genesis of the natural cannabinoid is just like THC. It's produced from CBGA. Except with the longer chain of THCP, the precursor molecule is called CBGPA, which can be converted in a plant to cannabinoids like CBDP or THCP. However, this only happens in exceedingly small amounts in plants that have been tested so far. How exactly the THCP on the market is being produced isn't clear to the purchaser, but you can be sure that it is not coming from high THCP strains. To date, there are no cannabis strains that are naturally high in THCP, so any flower being sold as high THCP flower is either false advertising or has been coated with cannabinoids after harvest. It's never easy to describe a high, but the THCP high can best be described as powerful. THCP is strongly attracted to the CB1 receptor, the switch in your brain that is triggered by THC or THCP to the classic high experience. Early laboratory investigations suggest nearly 30 times more potency of THCP at CB1 when compared to THC, but experiments done on rodents by the same researchers suggest only about double the potency. Considering how new this molecule is to science and new to the retail market, it's hard to say for sure how much higher one could get off THCP compared to THC, but the pharmacological studies done thus far suggest much higher. Additionally, the majority of products found during an online search warn customers of potent THC-like effects in products as low as 1 milligram of THCP, which is a fifth or even a tenth of the typical THC dose sold in retail stores. When it comes to the risks of consuming THCP, we know very little. No human research has ever been performed on this molecule, and we know from animal studies that it acts on the endocannabinoid system CB1 and CB2 receptors very strongly, though the effects have never actually been researched in people. Extrapolating on animal studies on other pharmacological theories, it is likely that THCP will produce a powerful high, and it's quite possible that THCP could have more prominent side effects than THC itself. These could range from mild effects like dry eye and dry mouth to low blood pressure or even paranoia. And since the ECS is not concentrated in the part of the brain responsible for breathing, it is still highly unlikely that THCP could cause respiratory arrest and overdose deaths like opioids. To summarize, while there's some initial research to indicate that THCP is a stronger version of the THC we know and love, we don't know much about its safety profile yet. There are also some serious quality concerns. With no high THCP strain at this point, all products on the market are hemp-derived. This makes them technically legal, but they fall under the same questionable regulatory standards as isolated or synthetic cannabinoid products, such as Delta-8 THC. If you do choose to consume THC products, make sure to check for a COA, but even more importantly, start low and go slow. Another new cannabinoid has been discovered, and again in very, very small amounts in most cannabis. This is probably another one that they're going to start creating synthetically, and who knows where that's going to go. What do you think of THCP? And this next story from 420 Intel, just because it's just a little bizarre. It was the headline that struck my interest. French mayor arrested after 154 pounds of cannabis found at home. Mayor Jamila Habassoui has been in police custody since Sunday, April 7th. After 70 kilos of cannabis, just under a kilo of cocaine, 20 gold bars, and 7,000 euros in cash were seized in searches linked to the case in Avallon-et-Vivant. Several homes, including Ms. Habassoui's house, the pharmacy where Ms. Habassoui works, were all searched in the investigation. This is the culmination of a major investigation that has been conducted by the Avallon Research Brigade for several weeks. Public prosecutor of Auxerre, Hughes Defy, told France 3 Bourgeonnal. It's been a lengthy process, which culminated on Sunday with the arrest of several people in connection with a drug trafficking operation that is likely to be quite extensive. The drugs and money seized suggest a fairly lucrative operation. 7 people have been taken into custody, and several homes have been searched, he added, explaining that the investigation began several weeks ago and linked several investigations. Yesterday, it took a new turn with searches and police custody, and we're now entering a new phase. French law allows people to be held in police custody for up to 24 hours, but in cases involving drug offenses, this can be extended to 96 hours. And at this point, the prosecutor must make a decision to prosecute or dismiss the case. Just a rather bizarre story out of France. I think if you're into local politics, perhaps you should keep your focus on local politics.
From terps to buds to concentrates, we've got it all rolled up. This is the Cannabis Podcast.
And as we approach the conclusion of this episode, I want to thank you for being a listener. As usual, I truly appreciate the fact that you are here. I also want to remind you, if you ever hear anything you want to comment on, or you ever have any suggestions for us, please send a note to info@cannabispodcast.com. And now, let's finish with some chuckles to give you a bit of a smile on your face as we finish this day. A man gets a call from his doctor after a drug test. "You've tested positive for opiates," the doctor said. The man quickly replied, "Oh, I had a bagel with poppy seeds earlier." "Yeah, well, you also tested positive for cannabis, LSD, and cocaine." "It was an everything bagel." "Apparently, smoking cannabis can affect your short-term memory." "Well, if that's true, what do you think smoking cannabis does?" "Have you heard about the cannabis-infused tea for marsupials? It's high quality." "If a courtroom's flora was only cannabis plants, would that make it a high court?" And that's from upjoke.com. We'll leave you with that groaner for the day. And that's it for episode 158 of the Cannabis Podcast.
From the Cannabis-infused studio, high above the Okanagan Valley, this was the Cannabis Podcast.
Thanks for listening to today's show. To check out more great cannabis podcasts, go to podconnects.com. Here's a preview of one of our other shows.
Hi, my name's Kate, and I'm your host of the Pop Moms Podcast. I started the Pop Moms Podcast, well, because I wanted to end the stigma against using cannabis, specifically with moms, but also anyone who chooses to consume. I strive for a balance of humor and education, along with some pretty rad guests, to help combat social biases that come with consuming cannabis. Kids are hard. Join me for regular podcast episodes packed with parenting hacks, real-life stories, and of course, my favorite cannabis products. The days are long, but the years are short. So roll another J and take a deep breath. Keep blazing and stay amazing.